Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and we're going to continue on our build. So now that we've tested our auth routes and we know that they are working as intended, actually first let me get rid of all these console logs so that way they don't, muddy up my terminal as we test things out. Doot, doot, doot. Okay, and then we'll hit save on that, so that way that all cleans itself up. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, now the next step is to set up our note router. So the things that we need. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just create the route. So we're going to say import express because we need the router. Import express from express. We're going to need the note model. So import note. And again, we're going to make sure we put .js at the end. And then we're going to import user from, and again, good, perfect. And then we're going to, we got both of those. Actually, I don't think I'm going to need the user. Don't need that. Not the way I'm doing it. Okay. What else am I going to need? We're going to need an auth middleware a little bit later on, but we don't need that quite yet. Thinking if there's anything else I need. I think that is good. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is create the router. So const router equals express dot router. Then let's export that router. Export default router. And then we can create our routes in between. Okay, so router dot get. So this is going to be our index route. Router dot get slash async rec res, and then I'm going to just kind of sketch everything out before I write out all the logic just to save ourselves some time. Okay, and then we're going to have a show route. Okay, and that's going to be slash ID. Then we're going to have a create route, which that'll be a post. Okay, then we will have an update route, and that will be a put with an ID param. And I'll just kind of copy that one. And then we'll have delete. And that should be put, not out. There's no verb of out. This one's going to be delete, so that should be delete. So this is referred to as the destroy route. And then that's good. Okay, so we got our routes nice and scoped out, so they all exist. Now I just got to implement the logic, like what do they do? Okay, so, and again, each one should have a try catch block, so let me just actually set that up first. Try catch error. And again, res.status 400.json error. Okay, and then we just copy that try catch block into each of these. Okay, and then hit save. So it cleans up the spacing. Perfect. Okay. So in the first one, what we want to try to do is get all notes from that specific user. Okay, so in this case, the user should be stored in the cookie. Okay, so let's go refer back to that blog so you can see like where that cookie would be. Okay. Okay. Now what's going to happen is we're going to actually have, we should probably build out the middleware first. Let's do that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in utils, new file, auth. We'll just call this, you can call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it is logged in.js. Okay. And essentially what this is going to be is a middleware function that's going to check, hey, is the user logged in? So I'm going to need JWT for this. Import JWT from JSON Web Token. I think there's anything else I need. I think that's really the only thing I need, because this is all a middleware function. Okay, so function is logged in, and again you can Usually is logged in is something that kind of returns like whether something is true or false. This is going to do a little bit more than that. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But it's a middleware function, so it has to take in rec, res, and next. And again, when it's done, it has to run next. Okay, so that's what the next function is. That's how it tells it, hey, move on to the next thing, because we want it to kind of go to our routes. And essentially what we're going to want to do is, like, here we have the exact code. So I'll just save, for the sake of time, I'll just copy and paste and we'll just talk about it. Okay. So essentially what we're doing here is in the try block, we are going to go get the token from rec.cookies. Okay, because the cookie parser middleware that we set up earlier is what is going to parse the cookie, and then in that cookies object, there should be a key for each key we set up in there. In that case, we want to grab token, and if token doesn't exist, we want it to set it to false. So we just want to explicitly set it to false. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. We're just making sure that, hey, if the token doesn't exist, we explicitly call the token false. Then we're checking, hey, is the token a truthy value? So if the token exists, it's going to be a truthy value. If not, it's false, and this statement will fail. And then what's going to happen is that if that's the case, it's going to throw not logged in, and then that error will be catched, and that'll be here. Okay. Cool. And then basically, if the token does exist, what we're doing is we are going to verify the token, which allows us to extract the data that we encoded in the token, aka the payload, which is just the username, and then we're going to add that payload to the request object. So that way the request object has that payload available to us. Because again, our route is only going to run if this is successful. Okay, because if not, then it's just going to throw this error, and we're going to get this JSON response. We're not going to get to go to our route. Okay, so essentially that's how this is checking. It's saying, hey, if the user's logged in, okay, it'll hit next, go to our route, and the payload will be inside the request object because we put it in the request object right here. Okay, we're saying, hey, there's going to be a property in the request object called payload that's going to equal the payload we just got from the JWT token. And again, if for some reason all this kind of breaks, then we're just going to send back a status 400. So let's export this function. Export default is logged in. And then I can bring that into the note router. So I can just be like import is logged in from is logged in.js. And then we can, every route here should be protected. Like if I only wanted to protect it like in only certain routes, I could do this. I could be like is logged in, comma, and then that middleware, this will have to run first, and only if this says next does it actually go to this function. I could do that. But since all of them need it, I can just do this, router.use, and then pass is logged in. And that'll always run is logged in before it runs any of the routes in this router. Okay, essentially it's a middleware at the router level. Okay, cool. So now we know that the payload will be available. So in that case, now I want to grab the username. So const username equals rec.payload.username, because we know that the payload is in there, because our middleware is going to create the payload in the request object. In the same way that the cookie parser middleware created the cookie property in the request object. Const username. Then what we're going to do is we're going to just go grab notes. So const notes equals await note.find, and we want to find all notes that have the same user, that the username is of the same user. And then we're going to just res.json notes, and then that's it. So that one's done. Okay, and then, you know, router.getById. We're going to do a couple different things. We're going to say, I'm going to do this slightly differently just to make it extra safe. Because, you know, you want to make sure, like, if you put any ID, you don't want to get some other user's thing. So to be extra safe about it, what we want to do is say, again, we're going to want to, I'll just copy these two lines because it's pretty much, I'll just copy all three because it's pretty much going to be the same pattern. Okay, so we get the username from the payload, except now we want to do find one because we only want one. Okay, and then it also one that has and then one that has an ID, underscore ID property, because again, Mongo does a whole underscore ID thing, that equals the rec.params.id. Okay, so basically it has to have a matching ID, and the username property has to match the user. So basically they can't, they can't manually type into the URL a request for something that's not the logged in users. So that just gives you a sort of a double check. Okay. So, and then basically that's really a singular note. You're only returning one note, so that's that. Okay. Then we do a create route. Pretty much again the same pattern again. So grab the username from the payload. Then except instead of finding a note, we want to create a note. The only difference is that actually now what I want to do is say rec.body.username, because again the rec.body is not going to have a username up front, because technically there's no username field in the form. That would be kind of stupid if you had to put your username every time you filled out a form. So we're going to add that. So we're going to say, hey, rec.body.username equals username, and then we can just pass rec.body. Okay, and then we'll create the note, and that is all well and good. Okay, and then for update, let's do update now. I'll copy this again. Okay, so this time what's going to happen is we still want to put the username in the request, because again you're not sending over the specific username in the form. So then note, what we want to do is we want to do find by ID and update, find by ID and update. Okay. Let me just remember what the order of the arguments are. Is it the ID first, I think? Yeah, the ID goes first, so be rec.params.id. So that ID, and then we pass in the rec.body. And honestly, we're not going to really do anything with the return value, so it doesn't matter. We'll return the... If I really want to be a stickler about it and make sure I get the updated value, I can go pass in here and just say, what is it called? New true. So that way it sends the new version of the object, so that way when I test it, I see it. Okay, so there's the update. And then delete. Okay, again, just copy all this again. We grab the username. Actually, we don't really even need the username for this one. Well, actually, technically we do. We do, because we don't want to make sure we don't just delete any single one. So instead of, we're going to say find by, or say, we're just going to say delete one. Okay, and we want to make sure we delete the right one, and we want to make sure that we don't just delete one that just matches the ID. So the ID will still be the rec.params.id, but we also want to make sure it matches the right username. So that way you can't delete other users' stuff if you know you can get Insomnia or Postman and just start deleting other users' stuff, as long as you're logged in under any account. So the username has to match the logged in username. Okay, that just gives you again that extra layer of protection. And then that's done. Okay, so technically now we should be able to create, well, I gotta register the router, so let's go back to server.js, import note router from /controllers/note.js. Okay, oops, looks like I forgot to write async somewhere, and that is in the isLoggedIn middleware. I forgot to make that an async function, so this should be an async function. Okay, good. That's running, so let's test that out. Like, I'm already currently logged in, so I already have this token that proves that I'm logged in. So I should, but let's just actually log out just to show what happens. Logged out. And then I'm gonna create like I'm gonna do this over here. So log out. Okay. So now I have no token. So now if I try to, oh wait, no, I never actually finished registering the middleware. Let's go back to server.js. Right here, app.use/note. And that's going to go to the note router. Okay. Okay, so back to Insomnia. Let's try this out. So now if I try to create a node, so if I try to create a node, which would be that, okay, I'm going to cut this out for a second. So if I were to say, oh, I want to create a node, and the node, what is, I forgot this, totally forgot the schema for node. Node schema is title and message. Okay, again, the username property will be handled on the back end. So I just need to put the title, some gibberish, and a message, gibberish. Okay, and let's try to send that over. Okay, and I get bad request. Okay, let me see, and see it says not logged in. So now let's try to log in. So I'll put back that username and password and say /auth/login. So I'm logged in. I have a cookie. So now if I try to do the note thing again, note. Okay, so we'll try to do a post to note. Okay, and see that time it created it. So if I go to the preview, see it created the thing. Okay, so that it works. It works when I'm logged in. And notice I didn't have to put anything in the headers, nothing like that, because the cookie just automatically gets sent over. Okay, the cookie's there. All good. Okay, so right now, see I have these cookies that are just kind of there. Okay. Nice. Okay, so that works. So now let's try something. Let's just now test out the show route. Okay, so I'm going to copy this ID. Then I'm going to put that at the end of the URL and make this a GET request. Okay, that worked. Got me back the data that I wanted. Okay, now let's try to change the title. GGGGGG and change this to a post request to see if it updates it. Okay, cannot post note. Okay, that tells me that this route does not exist, so that means I probably forgot to put the param. So let's go take a look. Note router.put. Wait, wait a second. What did I do a put? Oh, because I did a post. I want to do a put. That's the reason why that didn't work. Okay, yep, and there we go. So it worked. See, it updated the title. And then we tried deleting it. So I changed this to a delete request. And deleted. Okay. Cool. And now if I were to just double check to make sure it's deleted, I can just do hit the index route. I should get an empty array. So, but I make sure that's a get. Cool. Okay. It works. And again, it requires me to be authenticated. I have to be logged in and have that cookie present for it to work. So, yay. So this part works. We have our API and it does what it's supposed to do. Okay, so now we can really kind of go crack-a-lack on our React app. And the great thing is we won't have to worry about managing a token and worrying about where to store the token and setting up local storage because the cookie is just going to exist in the browser. So that makes life, for the most part, easier. Okay. We're probably going to still want to use local storage to know that you're logged in because, again, our JavaScript can't touch the cookie. So we're going to still need to put at least a marker that we're logged in and change that, but we'll cross that bridge. So I will see you all in the next video. We'll start working on the React side. At this point, you could deploy this API and it does what it's supposed to do.